Lovely, isn't it? The southern coast of France in the sunshine. Bastille Day brought the locals of Marseille onto the streets in their thousands to take a glimpse of the Tour de France, and they weren't disappointed either. The stage, in fact, was won by a Frenchman, Vincent Barteau, and he enjoyed his win too, didn't he?
And last night finished with a fantastic firework display here over the port in Marseille. But in the Tour de France yesterday, the fireworks started early, when Laurent Fignon and Charlie Motte set the race on fire. In fact, the pace set by these two riders was so hot that the rider who wore the first yellow jersey in this Tour de France, Eric Brooking from Holland, was forced to retire. Well, today's stage, the profile doesn't really look very difficult, but we start here at Marseille at sea level and we take some long winding roads into the foothills of the Alps to over 4,000 feet. And with this heat, it's going to be another exciting day in the race.
Paul, thank you. So we've lost Brooking. And another man in trouble yesterday, not for the first time on this tour, the defending champion, Pedro Delgado, who was fined 10 seconds for taking food outside a designated area. You might recall that happening to Stephen Roche the year he won it, so there's an omen there perhaps. No change in the overall classification after yesterday's stage. It's still Fignon from Greg LeMond. We're off to the gateway to the Alps today, stage 14 from Marseille to Gap, 238 kilometres, 148 miles. There's one fairly nasty climb en route, the Col de la Baraye. Otherwise, not too much to trouble the riders, apart from a very long day in the saddle. Here is Paul Showin and Phil Liggett. Phil.
And so the sun's shining yet again. We're rolling away from the Rhone Valley now. Next stop, the Alps, and the field will know this Tour de France begins from today until down towards the end of next week. And the first small climb today was a victory for Christophe Leven after 20 kilometres ahead of the two battling for the mountains. Turnus, who was second, Miller was third. The tables were turned on the Côte de Bois de Pourrières at 41 kilometres. Robert Miller passed over in the lead here from Ternisse. On to the two-cat sprints where Sean Kelly has an interest. He did very well. Kelly won the first sprint from Martin Early, his teammate, and his main rival here, Tebaldi. The second sprint, it was Jourdain who won. He wasn't of interest. Kelly was second, Tebaldi third. So Sean Kelly really is making this competition his own. On to the Côte de l'Ovestre, 104 kilometres. Ternisse again ahead of Miller, with Passira in third place. And the Côte de Châteauredon, Marc Madio, Luis Herrera, Jérôme Simon had started the attack of the day. That came at 130 kilometres. Simon joined the two leaders, and now as we join the race here, these are the three, Marc Madio, Luis Herrera and Jérôme Simon, and they have a lead of 1 minute and 5 seconds over L'Ordolino Cubino, and the main field, the last check we got, was 4 minutes and 40 seconds, and the distance covered 182 kilometres. So here we have the first sight, Paul, of Lucio Herrera. At last he's come out. Little bit of a surprise. He's chosen the day before the time trial to do this.
Well, very strange, because Herrera's been getting a lot of bad press recently about the fact that he's been too tired, he's not been racing very well, and all of a sudden, when it looked as if everything was going wrong, he pops up with a performance like this. And if he can pull back 4 or 5 minutes before we go into the mountains, it could put him back into contention. Cubino at the moment is doing a storming ride. He's coming across this gap, which at one time was nearly 5 minutes, and he's at the moment at 1 minute and 5 seconds. So he's trying to get into contact with these front leaders.
Well, there's the performances of L'Ordolino Cubino, a stage winner last year in the Tour de France, finished 13th in 88, 4th in the Tour of Spain. He's a rider just below the top flight of cyclists, but given his chance, he can ride well, but he's been chasing now for an awfully long way, and he's inching closer, but I mean, he's not really getting there as quick as he might like, but the good news for him is he's leaving the main field further behind, because the latest check now is the main peloton are 6 minutes behind the 4 men on the road, the 3 leaders and Cubino. 1 minute, he's closing the gap a little bit more. So the BH team, remember, they have one stage win under the belts this year, that wonderful stage win by Joel Pellier at Futuroscope, which seems an awful long time ago now, back on the road from Poitiers. Joel Pellier, we haven't seen too much of him since. 2 riders, by the way, have given up today. The war of attrition continues in the Tour de France, because Eddie Shapers, the faithful teammate of Stephen Roche, who gave up a couple of days ago, has also given up now and gone to the Belgian rider Herman Frison, who on a number of occasions this year has threatened to win a stage. Well, he's given up after only 15 kilometres of the stage today, bringing the field down to 159 of the original 198. And I think, Paul, it's fair to say that in the Alps we're going to lose quite a lot.
But it's been a very hard race up until now, and I can see us losing another 10, 15, maybe even 20 riders when we get into the Alps, because the race has been so hard, and this heat that they're racing under now really will tell on the riders over the next few days.
The beautiful, stunning scenery of the Alps. I know that many of you watch our pictures on Channel 4 because of the scenery that the race passes through, and it really is such a lovely day to be in the Alps today. I don't suppose the riders wholeheartedly agree. We're back with the main field here, all the boys in yellow, the System U team, and Christophe Leven, the rider at the front on the right with no hat. All around, of course, Laurent Fignon, you can see him being protected by his full team of riders, and making sure that any riders near him don't try to slip away like Fignon himself did yesterday, which caused a tremendous stir overnight. And also here, the green jersey of Sean Kelly behind Fignon. Kelly is having a great tour, and Paul, do you think there's any possibility that Sean Kelly can challenge for a top finish in the yellow jersey competition?
Well, it's quite possible that Sean could finish in the first 5 when we get to Paris, because he said himself that he feels very fresh, having not ridden too many races this year. So it could well be that Sean... I feel that the race could turn upside down again once we get into the Alps, so it's quite possible Kelly could do anything.
And a good tempo being set here on the climb of the Col Saint-Jean. And then it's all downhill to Gap. We haven't been here, in fact, since 1986, when Jean-Francois Bernard was the winner, and that was the arrival on the scene in the big time for Jean-Francois. He, in fact, was given a Porsche motor car by his sponsor for winning that stage, but since then, I'm afraid, his career has turned into something of a tragedy. He's out this year because of continuing injury, and he's never shown good form at all. And of course, Greg LeMond, the winner of the Tour that year, 86, is now back in the action and challenging all the way. There we see then Laurent Fignon down there being guarded by all of the Super U Rally boys. And on the far left of our picture, Turnisse, Robert Miller following him everywhere too. So they're climbing towards the top of, this is Turnisse and going with Miller. Miller's taken him on this time. This is a sprint for 5th place at the top of the Col de Saint-Jean. And Miller looks as though he's got it. Well done, Robert. That's a 5th place for Robert. Turnisse loses a point or so there in the competition. Everything to race for, so join us after the break. In fact, the chase has been vicious because the race is now wide open. We're just about 6 miles from the finish, and the lead now is down to 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Cubinho has been swept up by the bunch, which is being led here by Valerie Tebaldi of the Chateau Dax team, on loan in that red jersey, which of course is rightly owned by Sean Kelly, who's wearing the green one today. And the Patanina boys are here again, and I would suspect that they are trying to bring this race together as they did the other day, and to get another stage win for Mathieu Hermans. We're now looking from our helicopter to the beauty of the Alps, and if all goes well, we should keep this lovely sunny weather right through Alpe d'Huez, over the Col d'Izoard, the Col de Galibier, all the most famous names that have made this Tour de France the greatest challenge on the bicycle in the world. And we're going to be with them for the next week on Channel 4, of course. I wonder indeed if Lucio Herrera will be with us, though, because normally he was a man who won his King of the Mountains title here in the Alps. Maybe he's finding his old form here, Paul, because we always say those that ride poorly in the Pyrenees tend to ride better in the Alps.
Yes, and it will probably suit Herrera a lot more because the weather for the last few days has been very, very hot. A lot of the European riders will be surprised by this, and it does tend to change a rider's fitness completely, especially after the hard race we've had so far. There, Herrera is still working quite steadily with this group, and Jérôme Simon attacks down the right-hand side of the road, and it looks as though taking Maggio by surprise. Maggio responds straight away to try and come up there, and Herrera can't respond too quickly. He's trying to get back into contention. Looks like Herrera's having a real struggle to get back on here. I don't know why they're fighting each other to get rid of Herrera, because if it comes to the sprint, he isn't really a great danger.
I think possibly Simon was hoping to have got rid of Maggio, and Herrera's lost his position almost by default here. But he's coming back up to them. We'll have the three together again, and Jérôme will have to think of another move.
Well, that was, I think, really quite a bad move by Jérôme, because that'll break up the rhythm. And Herrera, if he's got anything about him now, won't work with these two riders because they've tried to get rid of him. It'll also stop the rhythm in the breakaway, and this bunch that's coming back behind them very, very quickly could sweep them up in the last 3 or 4 kilometres.
Word of encouragement there from the Cafe de Colombia Director Sportif, Nino Rafael. Don't think he's seen too much of the front today this year, that man. Here we are back with the main field. Let's see who's doing all the work. It's still the Patanina riders here who are driving the group along.
The finishes is going to be now after Simon tried to get away from this group. He's broken up the rhythm and the bunch has closed down dramatically, and they pull out the team manager's cars now. As we look back down the road there, you can see the group starting to come back. It looks to me as if when we get to 4 or 5 kilometres to go, we're going to get the whole bunch presenting itself for a sprint. What a surprise for a mountain stage.
It is indeed. This is Masson here. They've opened a nice gap over that bunch though. And Poisson is taking the ride behind in the slipstream. He won't assist, but I'm certain he'll have a go in the sprint if it comes to the line. They're still going to catch the 3 leaders. Here we go under the banner. This, I think, is 5 to go. As the 3 leaders go under the 5 kilometres to go, rather 3 miles from the finish. And they are saying that they have only 37 seconds lead over Masson and Poisson. And that means that the bunch themselves are at 44 seconds. That is the gap now. We are coming right down to a great finale here today in the Tour de France. The 3 leaders who've been out in front since the 130th kilometre today are now all poised to be swept up by these 2 riders first, and possibly the lot by the whole bunch in the finishing town of Gap. Gap is just ahead of us down the road. We had a second 5-kilometre board there, but one of them's wrong. It's our 2 leaders here under the 5 to go now. They can see just ahead the 3 leaders as we can, just by that motorbike up front. This, a springboard to victory, unbelievable ride. Pascal Poisson has jumped from the back to the front and into the lead. As Paul Sherwin said, this man has an incredible finish, and he's never shown it more graphically than today, because he's going clear to win the stage, and Marc Madio will not be too unhappy, but Nydam's coming at him. Jelle Nydam coming at him too, and Nydam's going to catch him. Jelle Nydam has jumped across the gap. I've never seen a finish like this in the Tour de France for years. Poisson sits up, Nydam's got him. My goodness me, they're all going to come together here, because Poisson has been caught by Jelle Nydam. Nydam, the specialist of the pursuit. His father was world pursuit champion in 1961. Nydam has been born with the talent of pure speed. He now joins the leaders here. Poisson must have thought he had that one. He's now been picked up by Nydam, who really thinks it's a little bit too early to have the front, but he's got it. He's going to have to make the best of it, because if he hesitates, they'll be on him. There they are, the whole field right down behind them. The finish now is only a matter of yards. As we head up to the line, the whole pack are coming back, and the Nydam can't wait either. And there they are. Kelly's right there too in that front pack. But Nydam now is going for the line, followed by Pascal Poisson. Nydam's no sprinter, but he's finding the edge, and Nydam's going to get his second stage win here. And the whole field are sweeping up those 3 escapers as Jelle Nydam comes towards the line. Poisson falls back. Nydam's won a brilliant stage today. Jelle Nydam gets his second stage, and Poisson just gets, oh no, I think Eddie Plankin snatched it on the line, and Sean Kelly was either 3rd or 4th. What a finish that turned out to be in the Tour de France. We think that, in fact, Eddie Plankett was the man who stole second place on the line. Well, you can't time a finish like that too often. A breakaway that lasted for 65 miles, caught on the line. What a marvellous finish to this stage of the Tour de France on the entry to the Alps. And smiles all round for Jelle Nydam. He wore the yellow jersey last year. This year, he's now won 2 stages of the race in spectacular style.
Well, another great finish. Jelle Nydam timing his move to perfection. Poisson, in fact, got second place. 3rd was Eddie Plankett. 4th, Wilfred Peters from the Histor team. And 5th, Sean Kelly. No change in the 1 to 6 in the overall classification. Remember, though, Delgado was